uninteresting?
I actually have the answer to this is because third places are disappearing.
It's a good job that she does tying in the third spaces idea, and I think you should watch her video because she does a good job of explaining that. I want to tie into this just a tiny bit, and from a business standpoint, that not just the axe throwing things, but like the idea of people kind of spending money to go do things. Yes, you're right. That has, in terms of dollars, gotten more and more expensive because the currency has become basically garbage. I mean, the US dollar is a garbage currency. On top of that, you will have your bankers and hedge funds that are printing money out of nothing to buy up these large areas to where the local businesses really can't afford to own their properties. When local businesses can't own their properties, that means they're a slave to whatever giant hedge fund owns the land, and so they're having to constantly pay these inflated rents that just keep going astronomical. And at a certain point, business owners like me close up. We just say, dude, we can't make enough money to even keep the doors open anymore, let alone turn a profit, and let alone turn enough profit to pay people really well. Because as someone like in my position, I love to try and pay people really well if I can. If there's money available, I got no problem spreading the wealth around. That has never been my issue. But that's the kind of thing that ends up happening. So there are many of us out here who would love to create more third spaces, myself included, actually. But when you look at the costs to do such a thing, let's say that you just take, I don't want to get too heavy into this, but let's say you want to buy a piece of real estate. So maybe you spend $1 million to $2 million just for the dirt. That's unimproved dirt. Let's assume you get that. And now you have to probably come out of pocket on this because bankers aren't going to want to lend a lot of money on this, especially with interest rates being what they are. And then of course, if they do lend it, then you have the interest to pay too, which means that now you have to pay your people even less money to pay interest to the bankers. In other words, this is always going to come back to bankers. Spoiler alert, this is always going to come back to bankers. The central banking is the problem. But then you do your build out, and let's say you spend $2 million on your build out. So you're now down $4 million before you've turned the lock to open the place up one time. You're out of pocket $4 million. You have to make that back somehow. From a business standpoint, you have to make that back. And if you'd have to charge a ton of money to people so in other words, no one would do it. That's the reality. Nobody would do that. And I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go out of pocket $4 million. And I certainly wouldn't want to pay a $100 cover charge to get into some place to go do something, even if I'm just going to sit there and have drinks with friends. So yeah, this is what's happened. The other part of the third spaces issue is that this right here, you looking at me, looking at you, that's become the third space. It's become digital. And I would argue that that's not healthy either. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's great for information, and I love the internet for that, and I love this kind of thing because you can actually do, engagement. But yeah, it's not the same as if you're sitting in front of somebody and you're having an actual conversation with a human being in real time in the flesh. It feels completely different. And yeah, so that is missing, and it is causing a lot of problems as a result of it. And the way to solve that would be, let me cut to the end now, we already talked about it, would be getting rid of central banking. Central banking is what's causing all of this, and conjuring dollars out of nothing is causing all of this. It isn't consumerism per se that's doing this, because everybody is a consumer at some point, even in the hunter-gatherer sense. You are consuming the resources around you. All life consumes other life. I mean, this is a fundamental of existence on planet Earth. So that isn't really the problem. What I think that most young people are talking about when they talk about the hyper-consumerism you're talking about, well, the price is going so insane. Well, that's the currency losing its value, losing its spending power. That isn't because there's a huge demand pushing that. In fact, demand should be dropping because birth rates declined 25 years ago markedly. And we're feeling that now because people aren't having 6, 7, 8 kids. And younger people now are not cranking out 4, 5, 6, 7 kids each. They're just not. In fact, you can look at the demographics all over not just the Western world, but something like almost 100 countries now are in demographic decline. They're not even replacing themselves, right? Which is 2.1 as replacement. So yeah, I mean, you have a number of compounding factors that are pushing on this. On top of, yeah, the big one is the cost. And of course, if you took out all of these middlemen, let me just kind of put it this way. If all of the middlemen disappeared, all of your politicians and your bankers and all the people that are doing all of this, then yeah, then a lot of costs would come way down for honest businessmen to go in and actually, open like normal bars and restaurants and inns and places for people to come in and hang out and sit in a beanbag and watch a giant television and eat a pizza and drink beer. I mean, like you know what I mean, like simple stuff like that, and they hang out and just do whatever they want to do. That kind of thing probably won't come back until it becomes so affordable. And then on top of that, you have this to compete with. The digital age, because there's a lot of people have turned into hermits practically. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm saying just it is what it is. So a number of compounding factors, but overall, I really liked your video.